Hello and welcome to Lore Cattle Ranch. My name is Gibby, and before I get started today, I wanted to have a very quick disclaimer. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a video that was just posted by ReviewTechUSA, and even though I'm going to be critical of some of the things he said, and even though the thumbnail and title of this video are very critical of the video he just put out, I want to say that I've been a fan of Rich and a subscriber of his channel for over 10 years. I've been watching him since rumors and leaks about the PlayStation 4 were coming out. I'm a fan, I have a massive respect for him and his videos. I don't always agree on all of his opinions, whether tech-related or political, but I do massively respect Rich, and I don't want anyone to think that this is some sort of hit piece or starting drama. He made a video about Chris Chan, and I want to address it because I am, unfortunately, some sort of expert in that topic. I'm sure that there are other people who have much larger channels who talk about Chris and get things wrong, and I'm sure that there are other people who get things even more incorrect than Rich did. I'm addressing this because I'm subscribed to him, because on my subscription feed, this video about Chris popped up from Rich. I obviously invite anybody watching this to go and watch his original video, but because he has significantly more viewers than I do, I assume most people watching this will have watched his video already. Rich got two very important things wrong, and he also uncritically repeated the words of someone else who I believe to be wrong, so I'm actually going to talk about that first. In his video, he read a theory or a post from somebody on Reddit, and I feel like that post really should be critiqued. Now, to be fair, Rich did say that he did not agree with all of it, but he did call it a pretty good theory. This poster on Reddit said that they believe that the case against Chris was dropped because it was an open and shut case of mental illness, that he would get the insanity defense and that it would work. And I don't agree. In fact, that is just simply not how that works. In order to have the mental insanity plea, you have to prove that because you are insane, you did not know that what you were doing was wrong. And that is in fact not the case with Chris. If, for example, Chris said that he had to have sex with his mother because he had been told by his imaginary friend Sonichu that that was the only way of saving her life, then yes, you could argue that because of his insanity, he didn't know that what he was doing was wrong. In fact, he thought it was the right thing to do. But that's not the case. That's not what he's claiming. That's not what anybody is claiming. In the leaked DMs between him and Noel, he was basically bragging about the things that he was doing with Barb. Keep in mind, this is back when Chris was hiding her identity from Noel. He was merely saying he has a girlfriend that he is doing these things with, and at no point did he try to justify his actions by saying that he's doing it because Sonichu told him to. During the leaked audio call with Bella the Troll, he was also basically bragging about his conquest and all of the compliments he received from her about their interaction. So once again, not something an insanity plea would justify. So no, this Redditor is simply incorrect that Chris would certainly be found innocent for a mentally ill plea, and it definitely is not a open and shut case. He is just wrong. One of this Redditor's other theories is that Chris was going to be let go on the basis that he be in some sort of care, that he's institutionalized, and so it was some sort of, like, plea that he would just not be found guilty as long as he was institutionalized. And we know that that's not true because we know that he's not institutionalized. He is completely free. He has complete freedom of movement. Now, I'm not saying, because we don't know for sure, maybe once a month someone comes and visits him from the state to make sure that he's okay. But he's not under house arrest. He is not institutionalized. So to claim that maybe he was not charged because the alternative would be that he would be given help anyway is false, because he's not being given help anyway. One of the other things this Redditor said, and honestly this is one of the things that makes me kind of discount all of their potential insight, is that one of the reasons that the charges may have been dropped is to save the jury from trauma and possible online harassment. And that's kind of ridiculous, because nothing that has ever happened in Chris Chan's life is more traumatic than something a jury would hear in a murder case. The worst thing that Chris potentially did was rape somebody. And juries are juries on rape cases all the time. There is no reason to assume that this would be any more traumatic than any other case that has ever been tried by a jury. There have also been court cases about, you know, celebrities and politicians, and certainly the jurors in those cases would be more open to harassment than the jurors in the Chris Chan case. So no, I think that that's very silly. My camera decided to start recording at 10 frames per second, so if I cut back to my face cam, I'm sorry about the frame rate. I am not a lawyer, I have no insight into any of this, obviously I do not even live in the state of Virginia, so I have no idea, just complete guess, this is my educated guess as somebody who follows Chris Chan, is that I think it's significantly more likely that the reason the charges were dropped is because they knew that the prosecution was only sort of going for Chris serving an amount of time that would already have been served by the time he's in jail. Basically, let's say he was found guilty and he had to serve 2 years in prison, but he had already served 2 years in jail. 2 years in jail. So he would get time served and then not be in prison anyway. The only thing that not charging him would change is that he wouldn't be put on a sex offender list. And I think that that might potentially be the reason that the prosecutor and the judge would not want to try him. It's very possible that they felt enough sympathy for Chris and his mental issues to not want to put him on the sex offender list when he very likely is not somebody who's going to be a repeat offender. So the thing that I personally decry, which is the fact that he's not on a list, is most likely the reason that he was not tried and instead that his charges were dropped. Again, just my theory. Okay, so now I do want to talk about the things that Rich got specifically wrong. The first is that at the beginning of his video, he claimed that Chris was manipulated into doing what he did to Barb by a troll, and he does get the troll's name right, Isabella Janke.
A troll, needless to say, Isabella Janke, I believe is her name, who is horrible too, manipulated Chris into doing something to his mom that I can't mention here.
I have stated this many times, but it is untrue. It is completely false that Chris was manipulated, convinced, coerced, or tricked into sleeping with Barb by a troll. That did not happen. Rich even seems to know this on some level, I just don't think he really puts 2 and 2 together. He talks at one point about how Chris had written an email to Megan saying that he drew a picture of the two of them engaging in intercourse because he felt like if he didn't, then he would have to do it in person, which means that Rich believes that Chris is capable of doing that sort of thing, meaning it would not really take the manipulation of a troll to get him to do that sort of thing. The majority of his video is also about how Chris looks guilty, like he looks like he knows what he did was wrong. If he was manipulated or tricked into it, he would have a reason to self-believe that what he had done wasn't wrong. The reason that I talk about this so much is because I think it takes a lot of blame off of Chris to claim that he was tricked into doing it or that it was a troll. He was not tricked into doing it and it was not a troll. Before Chris was talking to Bella about it, he was already sending messages to Noel about his new girlfriend. Once again, he was pretending it was not Barb. He was actually dropping hints that it was, saying things like she had a son around his age, and that her favorite actor was Adam West, who is Barb's favorite actor. So Chris was like gleefully, rubbing his fingers together like, haha, I'm leaving all these hints, isn't this funny? That Noel doesn't know who I'm talking about. When Chris told Bella on the leaked phone call, we have her Discord messages with her friends where she then immediately went to them to tell them what had happened on the phone call, and she was in shock and disbelief, and not before that point had she ever discussed this with anybody. So to believe that Bella was manipulating Chris, you would have to believe that she manipulated Chris into doing it. Chris then willingly and gleefully shared this information with Noel. That after this, he had a phone call telling Bella that he had done what she manipulated him into doing, where he told her what he was doing and she seemed shocked by it, and that she then, only then, told her friends what had happened. Clearly that is not the case. The timeline does not add up. Chris was not tricked, manipulated, or molded like clay, which is another thing that Rich says, into doing what he did with Barb. He did it all on his own, and I think that blaming it on a troll or manipulation takes away part of the blame from Chris. Chris deserves all of the blame. He did it entirely of his own volition. Chris admitted his crime to 3 different people, to Noel, to Bella, and to Dylan Thomas. He has since then called all of them traitors and liars. He is not saying that he was tricked into doing it, he's saying that those 3 people are lying about the fact that he admitted it to them. And of course he would do that, because he admitted it to them, and he needs to paint them as liars. Bella is a horrible person. There are crimes that we know that she's committed that she has been punished for. She was suspended from college for serious bullying and harassment. There are other crimes that she is admitted to, but as far as I know has not been found guilty of, and so I will not claim that she actually did them, just that she has allegedly done things that are harmful to animals. She is a terrible person. She is, very likely, a criminal. She did not convince Chris to have sex with Barb, he did that all on his own. The second very important thing that Rich got wrong is by saying, and though he doesn't say it in these words, he says that Chris R-worded Barb But he says that Chris raped Barb. This is also not true.
Just it's the R word multiple times too, and Chris Chan then bragged about it to Isabella. It was absolutely insane.
Both in a legal sense, given that Chris was not charged with rape, but also very likely in a literal sense. This is a hot take, especially to people who only follow the periphery of Chris news. But the idea that he raped her is mostly based on the idea that she is senile and could not possibly have consented. There is lots of evidence against this. People were stating, even before the crime took place, that Barb would play up her lack of lucidity to the camera whenever Chris filmed her for YouTube videos, because she wanted sympathy. And yes, I am the person who uploaded a video wherein Chris stated directly that Barb was in a zombie-like state since before the two of them got together. But that does not change the fact that there is absolutely no evidence that she was in fact not able to consent, and it does not change the fact that we have Chris's entire lifetime of her saying and doing very concerning things. After Bob, her husband, died, she would force Chris to sleep in bed next to her. She would make him cuddle with her. Their house caught on fire and they stayed in a hotel or a motel for quite a period of time, and during that time, Barb made Chris sleep with her. Like, physically sleep with her, like in bed together, not have sex. When Chris admitted to her that he had hired a prostitute so he could lose his virginity, she said that if she knew that he was going to pay for it, she would have done it herself. She would have had sex with him herself. Granted, this claim only comes from Chris, but when it comes to the entire family, there's really not much we can know objectively. Barb has always had a very uncomfortable relationship with Chris. And this, I'm very, very serious about this. This is not me saying that Barb was asking for it, that Barb deserved what he did to her. This is me saying that she was a willing participant. From all evidence, from all the studying of Chris I have done, it very much appears like she consented to the actions that allegedly happened between them. After the crime, she was taken to the hospital and theoretically examined, and no charges were brought against Chris for rape. I think it's absolutely ridiculous for us, as people viewing these events on the internet, to claim that we have more insight to the situation than the doctors who examined her after the crime. So no, in a legal sense, Chris did not rape Barb. In a literal sense, it is my opinion that he most likely did not rape Barb. No, Bella did not trick Chris into doing it, nor manipulate him, nor mold him into committing this crime. And no, it is very unlikely that the judge dropped the case because it would be traumatizing to the jury. I most likely think they dropped the case because Chris would have gotten time served anyway, because the prosecutor wasn't looking for a very long stint in prison. And no, I do not think it was on the condition that he be institutionalized, because he's not institutionalized. Rich has about 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and I think, and I hope you're watching this, Rich, and if you ever do, I hope that if you ever make a video about Chris again, then you clear up some of these misconceptions. I think that by blaming a troll, you're almost taking some of the blame off of Chris, and I know that your entire video was about stating how Chris clearly knows what he did was wrong, so I know that you're not intending on doing that, but that is what comes across. With that said, I also think that you almost didn't go far enough. You bring up that Chris is monetized on YouTube, and I don't think enough people are questioning the fact that YouTube allows him to be monetized. They've demonetized people for less. They demonetized Sniper Wolf for visiting Jack's films in person and doxing him. The things that Chris has done, even though, again, he was not found guilty, he did admit on audio recording to doing a horrible crime. He has been arrested in the past. He has a history of saying extremely racist and homophobic things. People have been demonetized for less. And I do think that there is an argument to be made that it is the responsibility, our responsibility of people who know what he's done, to try to get YouTube to demonetize him, because it is kind of crazy that he's being supported by the platform in that way. And so, Rich, if you are watching this, I hope that you do an update video to make sure that you get some of the facts right, but I also hope that you join me in calling for YouTube to take away the ability for Chris to make money on this platform, because I think that's kind of ridiculous. Thank you for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at GIBI_Devin, and please subscribe to Lore Cattle Ranch for more updates on the ongoing tragedy of Chris Chan.